What's up, everyone? I've been doing a lot of research on this Mandela effect phenomenon once I heard about it, as with hundreds of other people, and I come up with 6 reasons of why it may be happening. But instead of focusing on which theory it may be, it just may be easier to first eliminating the theory that it's not. I want to start off saying that every time I try to put this video together, more and more information keeps coming out that I have to keep adding. So by the time this video finishes, more information will probably surface. Oh, before I start, I have to say that we didn't all died and moved on to some other place and have to continue this hell on earth again. And if we all died, wouldn't we see the person that died before us? Well, we died just to die again. That don't make any sense. So, that don't make any sense. Now, these are just my opinions from my findings. Don't take them as written in stone. The purpose of this video is to help others to cope with what's going on and shed light on some of their findings. If you have other theories, please share or leave a comment below. We would love to hear them, and I can add them to my notes. Maybe we can all figure this out together, because you know whoever's responsible will never tell us the whole truth. So here it goes. Reason number 1, time travelers. It is possible that time travelers went back in time and made some changes that affected our future. I do believe time travel is possible, although there are some discrepancies that suggest that they may not be responsible for the Mandela effect that we are experiencing. Some scientists believe that there are rules that time travelers can't break when it comes to changing events. They say that if time travelers are sent back to change an event in the past, they sometimes the reason that the events happened in the first place. Because if time travelers were successful in changing the event, there would be no reason to send them back in the first place, which would create a paradox or something like that. And there are people who believe it is possible to change timelines, maybe because of movies like Back to the Future and recent pumps of time travel shows like DC's Legend of Tomorrow, Frequency, The Flash, Making History, Time After Time. Why all the interest in time travel all of a sudden? It's not by coincidence. Time travel could explain some Mandela effects and even have the butterfly effect to change people's names and even bring some people back to life. But there's too many problems in this theory. First, time travelers would not have the power to change or move land masses. They would not have the power to change human anatomy or create the many new animals and plants we now have today. Able to speed up the time or even change the stars. And if time travelers were able to change the past, why are we remembering the old timeline? Shouldn't that be erased from our memories? Let me know your thoughts on that. Number 2, the multiverse.
But there's something even stranger. Somewhere out there, we should find exact copies of our universe with duplicates of everything and everyone. But how could this be? How could there be exact duplicates of ourselves out there in the multiverse?
To see how, take this deck of cards.
It's made up of 52 different cards, and if I deal them, everyone will get a different hand. But over the course of many, many rounds, eventually, some of the combinations will start to repeat.
That's because with 52 cards, there's a limited number of different hands you can deal. So if you deal the cards an infinite number of times, then repeating hands are inevitable. And in the multiverse, a similar principle applies.
That's because, according to the laws of nature, the fundamental ingredients of matter, or particles, are kind of like a deck of cards. In any region of space, they can only be arranged in a finite number of different ways. So, if space is infinite, if there are an infinite number of universes, then those arrangements are bound to repeat. And since each one of us is just a particular arrangement of particles, somewhere, there's a duplicate of you, and me, and everyone else.
Another theory is the multiverse, the merging of realities. With the power of CERN and D-Wave computers, scientists are able to tap into other realities and possibly merging them. This would explain a lot of the Mandela effects that are happening. It may even explain the new animals that may or may not have been extinct in our old reality. Two realities where two different sets of choices were made. First of all, what are they merging really? Other Earths? Other universe? Or other conscious realities? Either way, they will all have the same problem. The problem is that if we all have two sets of memories of the changes that took place, the old one that we once knew and the new one that is now, shouldn't we also personally have two sets of memories of a few events that happened in our own personal life? For example, and bear with me now, let's say you had some important documents that you needed to get to the office, and you spilled some water on those documents. Or you take the documents to work and you dropped it in a puddle of water. Now, both of those events caused that paper to get wet, but as years pass by, you can't really place your fingers on how it got wet in the first place. You just know both of those things happened. I haven't had any memories of I can't recall having two sets of memories of anything except the ones that we all have as a collective. Maybe some of you do. I don't know. I like to know. Continuing. Now this part's interesting. I don't know how true this is, but I hear that there are some people claiming that they now have children that they didn't have before, and some can't find children that they did have. Did the merging of realities randomly replace people of both realities with half from one and half from the other? I ask this is because some of these celebrities with these name changes have not yet denied the spelling of their new names. Do they even notice the change? Or has it always been that way to them and different for us? Do those same people actually remember 6 people in the vehicle during the JFK assassination where some of us remember 4? Were they told to keep quiet about it? I would really love to hear why James Earl Jones' version of Luke, I am your father iconic line is not mentioned in my Star Wars VHS tape anymore. Luke, I am your father. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Many people are saying that Sinbad made the movie Shazam, but he said in his own tweet he didn't make this movie. There's even a YouTube video where a guy and his wife had a lapse in conversation, where he just had the conversation and she said that they had this conversation months ago. Wow. If we merge to a parallel reality, how come this new reality have so much odd changes that our original reality didn't? Like these colorful mountains and trees. These new animals are less, like I mentioned before, that they're extinct in our original. How do you explain the changes in our bodies?
This is where we get into parallel universes, parallel lifetimes, and they keep talking about dimensions. There are thousands of dimensions. The scientists keep talking about 5th dimension, 6th dimension. There are thousands. Many of these dimensions, there will only be a slight difference. And you're constantly going in and out of these other dimensions all the time. You don't notice it unless there's something that gets your attention.
Number 3, frequency shift. According to some theorists, there are multiple realities occupying the same space, just in different frequencies. And if we're able to change these frequencies, we will occupy that reality. Recently, there's been shifts in the Schumann's resonance frequency. The Schumann's resonance are a set of spectrum peaks in the extremely low frequency portion of the Earth's electromagnetic field spectrum. Schumann's resonance are global electromagnetic resonance generated and excited by lightning discharges in the cavity formed by the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. In an article by lifecoachcode.com, it states, for many years this resonance frequency has hovered at a steady 7.83 Hz with only slight variations. In June 2014, that apparently changed. Monitors at the Russian Space Observatory System showed a sudden spike in activity to around 8.5 Hz. Since then, they have recorded days where the Schumann accelerated as fast as 16.5 Hz. The problem with this is that the shift is stated to first begin in 2014. Apparently, Mandela effect was happening long before that. It is possible that whatever is causing the Mandela effect may also be affecting the Schumann resonance. Number 4, Saturn. Another theory which I'm basing on researcher David Icke about the planet Saturn transmitting a wave or a frequency that's tuned to the human brain, much like a radio tuned to a station's frequency, which project our reality.
And remember, physicists have said only this last few days, they may have evidence the universe is a computer simulation. Well, I say that it's a virtual reality, which has been hacked into, and that hack is the reality that we're experiencing. The fake reality. And that hack, I say, comes from Saturn. Because I'm saying that these rings are actually a massive broadcast transmission system which is broadcasting a fake reality within the frequency range that we are decoding, and therefore we are picking up that fake reality. When the Cassini spacecraft arrived at Saturn in 2004, found many things that was unexplainable. You know, things like the hexagon North Pole storm and stuff like that. But they also found extraordinarily powerful sound coming from Saturn. This is part of what they recorded. Nice, man.
Now I find this pretty interesting because he has a lot of evidence backing this up. David mentions the book The Ring Makers of Saturn that explains how the rings were made, and possibly not only made of ice and rock, but crystals as well.
And Saturn, when described pre-cataclysmic, didn't have rings. So where'd they come from? Well, maybe it had rings, but it weren't rings we could see. We can see them now. Well, this guy, Norman Bergeron, has he's in his 90s now, I think. He has a long, long history in space research, technological research, going way back. And his life changed when he started studying the pictures that came back from the Voyager 1 and 2 space expeditions to Saturn. They arrived in 1980-81. Because when he studied them, he realized there was something very strange about Saturn's rings. And he said this in his book, The Ring Makers of Saturn. Several years ago, a number of folks in the astronomy and physics world began theorizing that these rings had to be much younger than the universe, perhaps only about 100 million years old. But one pair of pictures shows a change in 5 minutes. An impression is conveyed that the latest reported measurements purport to be the true ones, when in reality all might quite nearly be correct at the time of observation. General reluctance to accept variable ring system geometry occurs because of apparent failure to identify a physical mechanism suitable for producing recurrent change. In other words, classic mainstream science, if we can't explain it, we'll kid ourselves it doesn't exist. And here are some of the other pictures of these electromagnetic vehicles picked up by these NASA craft. Why aren't they all in the papers being talked about? You'd think, what the hell is this? No, nothing. Thanks to Bergeron, we've seen their existence. This is the Hubble telescope. Let's pick one of them up. Look at the size of the bloody thing. And here's a few Cassini spacecraft pictures, still pictures put together. What the hell is that? Exactly what Bergeron was describing from Voyager. And this is the other thing. He found pictures of stuff spewing out of these electromagnetic vehicles into the rings of Saturn and bloody making them or extending them. And what is said to be in the rings of Saturn, I guess that's why we can see them, is like ice and stuff. I think, and I would suggest that eventually they will realize that there is a crystal substance being put into those rings that has a dramatic impact on their ability to transmit information.
David believes these rings are used as an antenna to transmit signals generated from Saturn to our moon, which in turn amplifies it and directs it towards Earth. These signals are tuned to the frequency of the human brain. David believes the reptilian race came to Earth from Saturn in order to survive certain doom as the fallen angels and have been ruling over us ever since.
And it's my view, as I've said before in previous books, that what the moon is doing, in its present use anyway, is taking this Saturn broadcast and acting as an amplifier to fire it at the Earth, so we get it in massively increased power and therefore effect. It's acting a bit like a dish transmitting information which we're picking up and decoding into a fake reality. 1996, I think this came out. The moon is a very powerful electromagnetic computer. The energy from the moon has been beaming electromagnetic frequencies onto the Earth for eons now to maintain the two-stranded DNA. The moon is a satellite that was constructed. It was anchored outside Earth's atmosphere as a mediating and monitoring device, a supercomputer or eye in the sky. Earth must be owned by those who dwell there. However, it is not. You have outside gods, creator energies, who prevent you as a species from having free reign with your kundalini. That's the energy of awakening, in effect. The influence of the moon as a main satellite computer affects all of the Earth. The moon's programs have for eons been of great limitation towards human beings. There are repetitive cycles that the moon creates to which you respond. The tales about the full moon and insanity, madness and heightened bleeding are all quite true. You know that television influences you a great deal. The moon is the same way. And astrologically, just as a very quick aside, when that great rearrangement happened, of course, astrologically, everything changed as well in terms of the influence of the astrological energies upon the human perception, because suddenly all these bodies are in different positions to where they were before. So the Saturn-Moon matrix, as I call it, I say anyway, is generating a frequency band, a fake reality, which we are decoding to be what seems to be a real reality, and the genetic manipulation has tuned us into it and created this cycle of round and round the garden.
These transmission projects a holographic reality in our brains like the movie They Live. If you haven't seen that movie, I suggest you check it out. It's pretty good. With the help of CERN and D-Wave computers, scientists were able to manipulate the code in the fabric of our reality that we live in. Maybe for their own gain, maybe to escape, who knows for sure. But it appears there's someone or something, and this is just me speaking, something is trying to warn us, or at least expose the spells that we're under, which is why they are purposely changing iconic phrases in movies, knowing that this is a sure sign that people can't deny something strange is going on without going overboard. Who's to say they didn't change major things and it was immediately changed back? There's so many overwhelming small stuff that the controllers can't catch them all. Number 5, the collective, aka the hive mind, aka the matrix. This one is too amazing not to believe. There is a Reddit report that not only Switzerland have a large hadron collider, but the US has one as well, secretly built in Texas. This was designed to be the largest antenna to match the frequency of our reality. YouTube user Jacob Israel does an excellent job of putting this together.
This is where it gets really interesting, okay? Stay with me. Everything in our universe is made of energy. Atoms are made up of vortices of energy, vibrations, continually spinning, constantly spinning. These scientists found that our minds are generating the same subatomic frequency. And just like a radio station, they theorized the possibility of tuning into this frequency. In the mid-80s, the consortium began to work on the Fork, a massive machine that would act as the world's largest antenna, specifically made to sync with this frequency, right? Which is why I was talking about They Live earlier. Basically, that's what they were trying to create. Now, it says nearly 10 miles in diameter and constructed entirely underground right in our own backyard. The entire thing was done under the false pretenses that a finished product would be a Texas-based super collider. Nearly 14 miles of underground tunnels, and the instructor had been developed before Congress pulled the plug on the whole thing. All of that was just a dog and pony show. While the public saw an abandoned underground expanse, the consortium used the secrecy to build their machine, as well as a concealed facility that operated under the code name Foxhole.
Are there more people talking about this? You bet. Take physicist James Gates.
I'm asking you that here and now. It's New York City, it's March 7th.
Well, partly it's taken to these very strange images that are behind your head right now. These are pictures of equations. I've been, for the last 15 years, trying to answer the kinds of questions that my colleagues have been raising. And what I've come to understand is that there are these incredible pictures that contain all the information of a set of equations that are related to string theory. And it's even more bizarre than that, because when you then try to understand these pictures, you find out that buried in them are computer codes, just like the type that you find in a browser when you go surf the web. And so I'm left with the puzzle of trying to figure out whether I live in the Matrix or not.
Wait, you're blowing my mind at this moment. So you're saying, are you saying your attempt to understand the fundamental operations of nature leads you to a set of equations that are indistinguishable from the equations that drive search engines and browsers on
Yeah,
our computers?
That is correct. So,
Wait, I have to just be silent for a minute here. So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos?
into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
Alex Jones, while he was drinking and smoking weed. And you know how some people like to talk when they get high.
The elite are all about transcendence and living forever and the secrets of the universe, and they want to know all this. Some are good, some are bad, some are a mix. But the good ones don't ever want to organize. The bad ones tend to want to organize because they lust after power. Powerful consciousnesses don't want to dominate other people. They want to empower them, so they don't tend to get together until things are really late in the game. Then they come together. Evil's always defeated because good is so much stronger. And we're on this planet, and Einstein's physics showed it, Max Planck's physics showed it, there's at least 12 dimensions. And now that's why all the top scientists and billionaires are coming out saying it's a false hologram. It is artificial. The computers are scanning it and finding tension points where it's artificially projected and gravity's bleeding in to this universe. That's what they call dark matter. So we're like a thought or a dream that's a wisp in some computer program, some God's mind, whatever. They're proving it all. It's all coming out. Now, there's like this sub-transmission zone below the third dimension that's just turned over to the most horrible things is what it resonates to. And it's trying to get up into the third dimension that's just a basic level consciousness to launch into the next levels. And our species is already way up in the fifth, sixth dimension, consciously our best people. But there's this big war trying to like basically destroy humanity because humanity has free will and there's a decision to which level we want to go to. We have free will, so evil's allowed to come and contend, not just good. And the elites themselves believe they're racing using human technology to try to take our best minds and build some type of breakaway civilization where they're going to merge with machines, transcend, and break away from the failed species that is man, which is kind of like a false transmission because they're thinking what they are is ugly and bad, projecting it onto themselves instead of believing, no, it's a human test about building us up. And so Google was set up 18, 19 years ago. I knew about this before it was declassified. I'm just saying I have good sources. That they wanted to build a giant artificial system. And Google believes that the first artificial intelligence will be a supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it. And we're actually building a computer that has real neurons in real time that's also psychically connected to us that are organic creatures so that they will have current prediction powers destroyed.
I will leave all the links in the description below. Number 6, quantum entanglement. Basically what this means is since the Big Bang, we have entangled particles all across our universe, meaning duplicates of everything down to the particle level. If scientists can reach into a parallel universe and change its particles' properties, whether it's past, present, or future, its sister particle in our world should also be affected.
Stop you right there, BA. Flashpoint doesn't exist anymore in this universe.
But in quantum mechanics, the daughter universe theory tells us
for every decision you make, a universe exists where you don't. Yeah.
Here's what I mean. Let's say this image in the mirror is our reality, and this image is of a parallel universe. If I make changes in this universe, ours will also change because of entanglement. It may even have the opposite effect. Who knows for sure? In closing, the Mandela effect is happening and it's real. And if you're lucky enough to notice the changes, it's not because of luck, it's because you were chosen. You now see things differently. You probably pay more attention to your surroundings where you previously never gave it a second thought. It's a lot to take in, especially with the many changes happening every day. The abuse coming from your family and friends when you try to tell them about it. But whether you know it or not, you're training yourself for something bigger that's coming. You will be prepared while your counterparts will remain lost. Still, this shouldn't stop you from waking others. There are people out there who want to wake up. I was one of those people. About a year ago, I noticed the Volkswagen logo changed. I would have been left thinking it was a company decision, until 8 months later when someone told me the YouTube Mandela effect. He never explained it, just told me to YouTube it. After that, everything started falling into place. Now I understand this butterfly man crop circle. I seen this years ago, and one guy explained that it means the human body is about to receive an upgrade. Back then I thought, the fuck is he talking about? Now I'm thinking, how did he know? Anyway, thank you for watching and sharing your time with me.